Welcome to the Sacred Rebellion, the space where truth isn't filtered, sovereignty is sacred, and the rebellion is a return to self. This isn't just a podcast, it's a remembering. We're here to break the trance of comfortability, reclaim our gifts, and rise as the embodied rebels we were born to be. Here we journey with the wild hearts, the way showers, and the visionaries who chose their truth over comfort, their mission over their fear, and their souls over the system. This is where the coded ones come to speak, the ones who didn't fit in because, well, they were never meant to, and the ones who turned their pain into their power and their story into their medicine. So drop in, take a breath, and let's remember who we are, one sacred rebellion at a time. I'd like to welcome to the show Taylor. She is a transformational life coach and meditation teacher who helps women stop living in their heads and start living in their bodies. Through embodiment practices, meditation, and intuitive guidance, she supports women in healing emotional wounds, reconnecting with their truth, and reclaiming their voice and power. Her work is for women who are self-aware, but ready to actually feel different, not just think differently. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, let's dive into the things. What was the moment in your life where you realized healing wasn't about understanding yourself more, but actually learning how to feel safe within yourself?
I think I didn't even know that that's really what I was doing until I started to feel what felt safety could feel like. And when I say felt safety, it's a safety that isn't reliant on my environment, that isn't reliant on external circumstances. It's a safety that really comes from within. And I think that that's a journey to continue to come back to, yeah, that feeling of felt safety and really what that feels like in your body, and not just to think yourself into a new way of being or to tell yourself that everything's okay when it's really not. So, yeah, it's been a journey of really honoring whatever is alive in that moment and leaning into that and cultivating and finding the tools to be able to do that in a sustainable way. And it's what I now teach my clients as well.
Yeah, I think there's a real difference in, I call that like soul led, where you like tap back into your soul,
Yeah.
your original energy field. And, I always tell people, because people always say that to me, like, how do you not leak your energy?
Mm,
And I really think it's a level of like no longer giving a fuck what others' expectations of you are. And so
hmm
you essentially move into this transformational aspect of like,
mm,
it doesn't matter what happens day to day. I know how to get myself back into that 0 point regulated energy.
hmm
And however long that process takes, but I know actually how to do that
Yeah.
without something externally affecting me. Does
hmm
that make sense? Like, I feel like
Yeah.
it needs to be kind of explained a little more because I think people just have this idea, especially in the new age spiritual community, like,
Mm,
I can just think my way through it. I can just think positive things. I can just like command, do like your affirmations. And the fact of is
hmm
that your nervous system essentially has to stop responding to that fight, flight, freeze, responding every time someone rips a cord from underneath you and you're going into a flight spose instead of being like, well, nice try. That didn't work this time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it relates to the conversation around bypassing, and the way that I describe bypassing is like ignoring what actually you feel to try and feel pleasure or to try and feel the thing that you actually want. And it's like, whoa, wait, there are so many emotions and stories and things that are actually crying out for your attention before you can even hold what it is that you want. So like when we talk about manifestation, right? Like the new age community is very manifestation, it's very up here. But especially as women, when we work bottom up about actually like occupying space in our body first, the way that we get guidance actually has a place to land. It's going to be more clear. It's going to be more refined because you're not operating from limiting beliefs. You're not operating from past pain, right? Because you've cleared that out first. And that absolutely requires nervous system regulation, which is actually the first thing that I take my clients through. Because if you don't feel safe in your body, if you don't feel safe to process and to actually be with the things that you want, you're not going to be able to hold them if they come into your field, and you might not even be able to magnetize them at that point because you're still in a trauma response or in freeze.
Yeah. So like I don't know if you know much about my story, but I was a clinical hypnotherapist. Well, I
Mm,
still technically am. And a lot of people like Joe Dispenza and all these people do mindset work.
mhm.
And I had done all this mindset work, like my brain was clear. I had done belief systems, but I had never allowed my body to communicate with those
Yeah.
aspects of myself, and obviously that was like a while ago. But, I think a lot of times, especially in new age and kind of what's going through the reality right now is
Mhm.
if you just clear your mindset, then everything's good. But the fact
Mhm.
of it is, you're a multidimensional person. So you have
Yeah.
7 layers that are functioning in your system all the time. One of them is just only physical. The mind is physical. And so it's always interesting to me because I think a lot of times people claim ego is quote bad, but I actually look
Mm.
at the ego as what the brain is just telling the ego to run. So it's your relay system actually. And so for me, it's like if I can personally program my ego to perform what I want it to, and I feel anchored in my body. You talk about bottom up. That's such a
Mm.
great way to explain it is because if you feel safe in your body, then everything else is external noise because as someone who's a mom, I don't know if you're a mom, but I'm a mom of 2. I have one with a medical condition, type 1
Mm.
diabetes, which is like an entity within itself.
Yeah.
And it's like I had to learn how to regulate my body with constant like 2 nights ago, I get up with an alarm on my phone of extremely low blood sugar and it falling rapidly and my body immediately goes into flight mode, right? That's a natural response and it's going
Absolutely.
on into a natural response. But the new age spiritual community would be like, you're not healed because you had a response. And that is not true.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so it's like, I like had to take a moment. I mean, I'm flying out of bed, getting juice and like handing it to my kid and be like, you got to keep drinking, keep drinking, keep drinking, you know? And I get back in my bed and I was like, okay, now we're going to regulate my emotions because now I'm like, and like, he's fine. He's going to be okay. Like, let's
Mhm.
just regulate this. And because people like you and I and other people have created these tools specifically to help regulate you back to that 0 point. Did it take me 3 days of spiraling? No, it took me like 30 seconds and I was back to sleep. Right. And
Mm.
so it's like being able to work in the quantum realities. I don't know if that's something that you work with, but I work in the quantum reality, shifting that energy of like, I am now safe. I
Mhm.
no longer have to be in flight mode. Let's go ahead and just regulate that. And do I have anything, moving through all the dimensional aspects of moving that energy through your
Yep.
field.
Yep.
And the thing is it doesn't need to take 3 days of spiraling. That's the difference between regulated and non-regulated,
Mhm. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, and I think it brings up that point of there's a lot of conversation and it's because it's fun, right? To like play with your intuition and to work with your gifts. Like there is a desire that I find with people that only live up here to check out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
part
for
of
sure.
our journey of being on earth is to learn how to occupy our body. It's to learn how to be a human. It is such a gift to be human when we know how to play with it, how to dance with leaning into the despair and the sorrow and the fear and then not letting it fragment us and learning how to come back and learning how to be with the spirit. It's both. Otherwise we wouldn't be here. We'd be with spirit, which we always
Yeah.
are, but we'd be with the one in that form. We wouldn't be human. So I like to, my mentor and I have talked about this because I have studied her methodology, Narayana Gaia, under the Awakened Life School. And we've kind of landed that this work, the work that I do is really integration work. It's integrating your past into right now. It's integrating your future into right now. And it's integrating being in the body as a spiritual being having a human experience. So I think that's a reframe that I like to offer people of yes, the gifts are so fun and they're already there. But imagine if you know how to be with your body, if you know how to be with the human experience so deeply that when you go into these states, you know how to integrate it into the human aspect of life, because that's really what we're here to do. And ultimately, let that be of service to ourselves and to others.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of people are like, "I don't like to be human," or "I'm not gonna be human again," or "I'm not
Fair.
gonna be this." I'm like, "Okay, well, that's fair, but, like, we have pleasures here. There's
Mm.
not pleasure in all other, places in the galaxy. Like, we have a lot of pleasures, and
Hmm.
I feel like that's something to touch on is because that's part of also the human experience. I think it's beautiful because I think a lot of people need integration and,
Hmm.
they go do ayahuasca or they do plant medicine and they do it, you know, 5, 6, 12 times. And that's the only way they know how to clear out shadow or belief systems or
Hmm.
awareness is through going into altered states. But where the real medicine and power lies is being able to day have that awareness, the day to day of actually knowing that you don't need to be addicted to healing. You don't
Hmm.
need to constantly be fixing yourself,
Yeah.
and that you can essentially move through these belief systems by simply making a different choice. It really is that easy. It's a
Mhm.
choice. And also realizing that your addiction to quote healing, not yours, by the way, but most people's addiction to healing is actually because they're uncomfortable in their own field. Just like
Mhm.
you said, uncomfortable in the human experience. And you can't heal your way out of your uncomfortability. You have
Mhm.
to sit in it, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely, yeah. That's the sitting with it, I think, is such a constant practice, like, for me as well, still even years down this path of, like, a dedicated practice and all the things, but that's what, again, makes being human so amazing is, like, we don't have everything figured out, and how much can we surrender to the not knowing? One thing that I talk a lot about on my social media and emails and all that stuff is my experience with Hurricane Helene. I was living in Asheville last year, when the hurricane came through. And it was one of the most deep initiations that I've had in we are not in control. We are so not in control. And you can plan and plan and plan and think your way into what you want or how you think things are going to be as much as possible. And yeah, there is room for planning, right? Yes, absolutely have goals and be willing to let go if life wants to life you and move you in a different direction because it will absolutely life you up.
It sure does.
Yeah,
Yeah, it sure does. That's what 2020 gave me, a child with a medical condition. So,
absolutely.
that wasn't planned,
Yeah,
and now that affects us every single day. So it's like
yeah,
you can think you're quote in control, but your soul is essentially initiating you into
yeah.
different aspects and awakenings and peeling layers of patterns. And like every time I have a new awareness, I'm like, wow, how long have I been running that? That's
Mm,
interesting. Instead
mhm,
of being like, I'm so victimized by this. This is
yeah,
just so hard. My life is just so hard. It's like you finally get to a point where, like, yes, you're still doing quote healing or whatever you want to call it, but
mhm,
it's really the level that sounds like you're also on is the level of moving through everything in your life of like, I'm the creator. I created this. I created this for some reason. Why did I create this? What's this benefiting me? What's this moving through? It's like the awareness. And I think there's a level of consciousness with that
absolutely,
awareness, you know? And
absolutely.
so I'm going to ask you a question. At what point does self-awareness become a trauma response instead of a path of healing?
I think when you aren't holding yourself with grace and you think that there is something that needs to be fixed immediately, and you go into solving a problem versus sitting with it and being like, "Okay, I hear this part of me. What is the message that this has for me?" And it might not be a deep cathartic process. Not everything like what you were saying of, I don't actually need to spiral for 3 days. Like, there's sometimes where I'll be crying and I'm like, "Meh," and then I'm like, I don't need to actually be crying right now." Do I is that just a response to this
Yeah.
feeling, or is that actually my truth? And that takes practice. Like, all of this is such a practice of continuously coming back to the tools and integrating, right? Like, because if you're not integrating, you're going to stay in those stuck patterns. And I think what you mentioned about choice and like personal responsibility, that absolutely is going to, like, people are going to hear that and be like, what do you mean I chose this? What do you mean I'm choosing this? That there are other things to be unraveled before that. I think a lot of people are really ready for that initiation. For me, that was a major initiation because it wasn't just my human self choosing, it was like on a soul perspective. Why did my soul choose something that effed me up? Like, why would my soul choose this arc of something to experience? And it's not because there's something wrong with me. It's not because something is my fault. It doesn't mean that something is okay, but there was a lesson that my soul chose to learn before I incarnated. What is that lesson? And why maybe even letting go of the question of why did I need to learn it in this way? The question gets to be like, what is this showing me on the other side? Because I truly believe there is nothing that a human can experience that you cannot heal from. There is nothing that we can endure that we cannot come out on the other side when you have the right support and when you find the right tools. There is nothing. So if anyone is listening to this and feeling like I can't get through this thing, I want to invite you to really seek out support. Use your discernment, find support that is true and authentic, and then lean all the way in. Don't be afraid of what you find there because your deepest fears and your deepest pains are your greatest opportunity for healing every single time.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't ever say, why is this happening to me? I
Mm,
say, where are you taking me? Where is this
mm,
pushing me into? Like, where are we moving into the next
yeah.
level? And I always find it interesting because people have rules. This is kind of a big thing for me right now.
Hmm.
It's like these underlining rules. It's like, I have a Cancer rising, so I can't do that because I'm a Cancer rising, or I can't do this
Mm,
because I'm a projector, or you don't understand because you have a defined sacral, so you always have energy. And it's like these defined specific rules. But if you're a quantum, multi-dimensional person, you create the rules.
absolutely.
And so I think there's these underlining, does it help you understand why you tick the way you tick? Of course it
Mhm.
does. It
And
teaches
it's fun.
I'm a generator and it's fun.
Yeah.
And I can be like, okay, this is why I'm being initiated into this because this transit is running right now. And this is moving into this. And that's why this is happening. Okay, I can understand that. But do you want to know what that tells me? That the matrix is very specifically orchestrated
Mm.
to bring certain things into awareness at a certain time. And you
Mhm.
can either take that as someone who like recodes realities. You can take that recode, right? You can take that reality and you can say, I'm a victim of my astrology. I mean, I'm a Scorpio, like people have all these beliefs about Scorpios. But what people don't realize is that I'm able to take a shadow aspect of myself and alchemize the living fuck out of it
Mm.
and take it as a technology. And then I see it in other people. So it's like, could I have been like, I'm just a fucking bitch because I'm a Scorpio, like, you know what I'm saying? Or could I simply be like, I'm a fucking badass
Mhm.
disruptor and a shadow worker that sees through the thick of the bullshit and calls it what it is because
Mm.
that's what we need in our world, right? So it's like we can take something and we can be like, run the rule, or we can take it and be like, I'm going to alchemize the shit out of that and I'm going to create what the fuck I want. You
Yes,
know what I'm
ma'am.
saying? Do you see the difference?
Absolutely, yeah. It almost becomes like a I love to talk in metaphors, obviously.
Oh, yeah, me too.
So it's like the bumpers of when you're bowling. Like all of these
For
are
sure.
just little things that are pinging you back and forth that you can play off of to find what actually your truth is and your path
Mhm.
forward. Like the path is always going to be there, but there are these things that come up that support us in fine tuning like what direction we're going to go in. And I think like for me, I've reached a point in my practice where I was reliant I don't want to say reliant, but I heavily used all of these tools, like the crystals and the cards and all of these things to commune with spirit. And I reached a point where I was like, what if I put these down and I listened deeper? What if I sat in nature and I listened deeper and I felt? And I didn't use these things that are so fun. Like I still use them in my women's circles that I host. I still use them from time to time. My pendulum, oh yeah, like why not? It's fun and I believe in it. And if I am to remove these objects that act as a way to connect to spirit, if I remove the middleman, right? What's there? What does that feel like? How subtle can I feel into the energies? Because energy is subtle. It's this silent, quiet, ancient pulse that lives throughout everything. So it's always been there. And how much can we silence the mind? How much can we drop into the body? How quiet can we get with life, the pulse of life? And what does our unique flavor taste like as we connect to it?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't use a lot of tools. I'll be honest with
Mm,
you. I mean, I use my like SOs. I do use SOs because they
mhm,
amplify the frequency, but I can channel without them. It's not like I
mhm.
need them. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? And I
yeah.
think that a lot of times, you can have tools and they're great. I think they're really great for beginners.
Mhm.
But it essentially, once you actually learn how to use those tools, like a crystal, for example, the intelligence of a crystal, I don't even think people know yet how to really use crystals in the
I
full
agree.
potential that they are, right?
Yeah.
So, like, take an SO, for example. This SO is full of crystals. Now, the person who manufactured these and created these and drew the light code on these, he's learned and taught people essentially how to use these and all the crystals and the things, and they're programmed, right?
Mm,
So if you take a crystal, I don't have a crystal next to me, but if you take a crystal, for example, like a smoky quartz, which I have one over there, and smoky quartz is actually, I use a lot in my dark feminine course because smoky quartz absorbs negative frequency. It absorbs it. And also like a bowl of water with salt, which also absorbs negative energy. That's actually even been, they can take that sage, moving sage through your house.
mm,
But there becomes a level of everything isn't just physical.
mhm.
It's also a spiritual aspect. There's a 4 or 5D aspect that you have, quote, in your home. And so moving through the quantum aspects, that's why I think quantum healing is going to just continue to blow up,
Yeah.
is because quantum healing is instant. Just like the actual physical reality has already moved into quantum aspects, right? We have quantum baking. If you want money from Africa to the United States, it's instant, right? We don't wait for it to come. Where
Mm,
it used to be like, you got to send a check and it took days. Like, yeah, you'll have to wait 3 or 4 days for the money. Now we have quantum banking.
mhm,
So if we have quantum banking in our physical reality, then you have to realize that everything's going to move into that aspect. Crypto, moving things energetically. You and I are talking through a camera system where you're in a location and I'm in a location.
mm.
That's quantum energy moving, right? This is instant gratification of moving things. So if you can actually see it in your physical reality, which
Yeah.
is we live in 3D, then why aren't we moving into these aspects in 5, 6, 7, 8, continue on, whatever you want to call it, in these aspects of ourselves. So I feel like a lot of times what happens is that people become disconnected from their physical body so much because they're using all of the upper three chakras, right?
Mm,
And I wouldn't even say upper three because most people don't even use their voice, to be honest with you.
mm.
But they're channeling from their third eye all the way to their crown system. They're not using their voice. They're not using their heart chakra because your heart chakra essentially is your soul connection. And they're completely disconnected. But they think that they can think their way out of things in the aspect when really it's about the connection, which is what I heard from you, is that it's
Mm.
about connecting back into the physical body,
Yeah.
because when you can connect back into the physical body, then those are the type of healing practices that actually move systems, right? We
Yeah.
can actually I call them architects, where the physical reality shifts very quickly
Mhm.
by simply changing how you feel, changing how you see, changing the perception, changing the choices, changing what you think, right? But it takes all of those levels of awareness to make physical reality actually shift, which is
Totally.
something we talk about.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
body, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Like I think of when I first start to work with people and I'm tracking them as we're talking. And one of the biggest signs for me is, where is your breath? Is your breath up here? Can you take a full deep breath? Because if you're not taking a full deep breath, we got some work to do in the body to get you to feel safe in the body. People that typically aren't belly breathing or taking that full breath are living neck up. And so how can we get back into the body and use the wisdom of the body? And this is the feminine way. When I was talking about bottom up, this is the feminine way. This is the way that has been forgotten and
Yep.
considered in a way less valuable than thought and action and logic and movement and reason, right? You can't reason with your emotions necessarily. Your
No.
emotions hold truth.
Yeah.
Everything you feel holds a truth, no matter how big or small. Whether it's connected to a belief that is quote unquote true or not, that's something different, because your beliefs can be challenged. Your emotions are always going to be valid. They will always point you to what the truth is in that moment. Does that make sense?
Well, it just made me think of, like, try to reason with a 3-year-old while they're throwing a shit fit.
Yeah,
See how it works out for you.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. Or
Like, that's, like, the perfect analogy. I'm like,
it
go
is.
ahead and tell a 3-year-old why they can't have a donut for breakfast and reason with them and see how far you get. You're not gonna get anywhere.
Exactly. No, exactly, it's true. Or if you have that little 3-year-old yanking on your shirt for years and years and years and you're not listening.
Yeah. Well,
That's
they
not.
would they would they would just start punching you at that point,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, and it feels like that, man.
Yeah. Oh,
It
it does.
does.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure, yeah. It's so funny, like, I love that you brought that up because you can't reason, and the first thing came to my head was like, yeah, you can't reason with a toddler, and they're the ones that are like their emotions are so big, and you
Yeah.
just have to validate their feons, and you just have
Yeah.
to say, like, "I love you," and, like, "We're not having donuts for breakfast. Sorry, we're not,"
Yeah.
on the day, right? We're out of the toddler phase, thank God, but,
Yeah, but what a teacher, honestly.
yeah, yeah, they are. They're definitely teachers. You know
Yeah.
what? And they're my favorite. Like, it's my favorite age, that 2, 3 to 4. It's like, oof, you got so much sass. Like, whoo, you know? And
Yeah.
when violins, I'm like, you're gonna hit me when you're a teenager. I already know it, right?
Yeah.
So, at what point does healing become avoidant? I know you talked about this in some stuff that you sent me. And how does someone know the difference between, avoiding and also actually moving through the energy? Can you tell us the difference?
You're kinda referring back to bypassing, yeah? A little
Mhm,
bit? Yeah,
mhm.
and the emotional charge is still there. The emotional charge is still there. Once you start to do healing work and you start to do energy work and you start to really do that internal reprogramming, lying to yourself becomes not a thing. You can't lie to yourself because you have activated the awareness of how you feel. You've activated your energy body. When I work with clients, I call there's like 12 energy activations, 12 initiations that we go through. And one thing I tell them is once this has been activated, it's in your field. You're aware of it. You've unlocked it. So when you are out of balance, you have a way to check back in with yourself and feel into, do I feel like I'm in alignment right now? Not so much. Where do I feel like I'm not in alignment? So I think it gets hard to lie to yourself. I don't believe in regression really on the spiritual path because you continue to awaken energy. You continue to refine. Yeah. And it becomes hard because there's a level of commitment and awareness that happens that it's almost impossible to kind of lie to yourself. It will make things more difficult and uncomfortable in the body. So I think that bypassing can happen sometimes though if it's like in those moments where where you're feeling a little charged or something and someone tells you, "Oh, just be grateful. Just be grateful. It's such a good thing that's happening right now even though you're feeling this way." That's bypassing. Because what if I'm not grateful? What about that part of me that isn't grateful? I love my parents so much. I love my parents so much. I believe you. What about the part of you that felt really abandoned? No matter how big or small, that's where I'm concerned about. That's where I want to investigate. Because again, wherever that density lives is actually an opportunity for more expansion and more space to be created. And in that space, that's what you get to fill with love or passion or desire or whatever it is. So that's kind of the example that I give for bypassing. I think I think having support, it's one of the reasons why one-to-one coaching is so powerful is because you're in this dedicated container with somebody that is there to track you on those micro levels and hold you accountable to what they are seeing might be getting bypassed because a person isn't an experience or whatever. And it brings you back to, hey, I noticed this thing a minute ago. Let's sit with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I've worked with many people
Mm,
and you can even work in a one-on-one container and not want to change. Seen it.
absolutely.
And I always love this is probably like, and I'm going to probably piss some people off, but I cannot fucking stand the word of this isn't in alignment with me.
Mm,
You just got called out on your shit and you don't want to sit with it. So you bypass it by saying, this isn't in alignment with me. The only reason that's not in alignment with you is because you're not willing to look at it.
mm,
You're not willing to look at it, and as someone who is, like, who sees interference, I've seen that, and it's like, your your mind will literally create a block when it doesn't want to go there. It
mm,
doesn't want to go see it. It's like, if you don't love all of you and your coach says, "The reason why this is not moving in your field is because you don't actually," which is probably one of the biggest things I've seen in higher level healers is people who wanna go from, like, $3 to $4,000 to $10,000 months, okay? Biggest thing I see in almost every single person is you don't accept all of you. You
mm,
don't accept your gifts, you're not willing to talk about them. You're not willing to talk about your business with whoever's in the room, you're not willing to be fully anchored in who you are because you have
mm,
some level of shame. You have
mm.
some level of shame and you have some level of not accepting all of you, and that's why the money can't flow through. It's like, you can make
Worthiness.
yeah, and it's 2 or $3,000, and then when you wanna move into the $10,000 range or even 20, I've seen it even with coaches that make 60, $80,000 months, right? It's like there's a level of them that can't accept all of them, all of themselves, and
Mm,
when you call someone out, especially and I've noticed, like, it's easier to tell a coach that makes $60,000 a month that they don't accept all of themselves, and they're more willing to do the work than someone who makes about $2,000.
that
They
makes
don't
sense to
wanna
me.
look yeah, I
Yeah.
was like, they don't actually wanna look at all of themselves. They're still blaming external aspects, the algorithm. I just don't have a good enough marketing team. I don't have this, I don't have that. It's like, no, it's you. You're the one that creates your reality. You have to move and pull that
Mhm,
expansion. And it's like, think of it like a file folder. If you have files of beliefs and identities that are like, I can't do that, I can't do that, I have that rule, I have that rule. It's like, it always goes back to, I don't feel safe enough to be fully seen and I don't feel worthy of abundance or whatever so I see a lot of that. Do you notice that too?
yeah, I don't work with coaches as much as, like, deep feelers, people with deep, like, emotional needs. I have worked with people that are looking into starting coaching businesses or becoming a yoga instructor or something in the holistic realm. I do my best to get them to a place of inspiration and to dwell in, like, what's possible. I don't like to I don't wanna always, like, be the one, and I'm not saying you're doing this, I'm saying I've seen it in other coaches before of, like, giving them the answer because that's not sometimes, yes, but I don't always feel like that's the most helpful because I wanna guide people to come to their own realization in their own words and reflect back, like, be a strong mirror of, "This is what I'm seeing in this moment. How does that land with you? How does that land with you?" And I haven't had a ton of pushback. It's more, yeah, I've been really lucky with the people that I've worked with. They've been really amazing. There've been a couple instances where it's like, "Up, I don't think this is right for us. I don't feel like this dynamic is in alignment because of whatever else like that." Everyone is gonna resonate with me and
Sure.
my work, you
Sure.
know?
Sure.
Yeah, so I've been really, really lucky and blessed with to work with really incredible women that are super committed, that are open to feedback, that are I think that's the biggest thing is like really being open to feedback and understanding that when you sign up for a container, you are signing up for someone to point your shit right back at you. We're
Yeah.
mirrors. Healers are
Yeah.
mirrors.
Yeah.
We all are, but
Yeah, it's just like something I've kind of noticed in the last year. I'm like, huh, this is really interesting as working with people who sit on so different aspects of
yeah.
like who have legacies, like certifications and all these things, and they're making 60, 80, $100,000 a month to
Mm,
people who are making, $2, $3,000 a month. And I'm going, wow, what a difference. Cause you can see it, and I can feel it in my body because I'm very, I have feel everything in my body.
mm,
So go back to the human design, all defined except for my head,
mm,
like completely defined. So I feel everything. And
mhm.
so it's always interesting to me. It's like as someone who sees distortion so and I'm like that too, but then there comes to a certain level where it's like, we've been circling this long enough and I already know the
Absolutely.
answer. And I'm going,
Absolutely.
"Holy fuck, like, this is your problem. This is like, sorry, it doesn't feel in alignment. Okay, I'm gonna tell you again next month, like, this is your problem. Soon as you're gonna see it, you're gonna transform your life, I promise you." And it's
Totally.
always in because people, for me, it's like, I don't know about you, but my daily practice involves me communicating with my soul, communicating with my shadow, communicating with my body, communicating with my guides and my ancestors, moving through the dimensional aspects of myself every single day, doing micro shifts because as someone who feels everything, that's what felt good in my body. Now, that doesn't say that works for everybody. Some people like really big sessions and they like the transformation and the ayahuasca and all that. But for my nervous system, as someone who feels that you said talked about big feelers, the
Mm,
person who feels everything when you walk in the room, everything and leaking energy was
yeah.
I can resonate with that.
Mm,
For me, it was micro shifts every day, focusing on the over explaining, focusing on having no as a complete sentence,
mm,
focusing on, moving through those micro choices every day and transforming life into that. And I love how you brought up that like being able to make a choice and have feedback from people, I think is essential
yeah.
along your healing journey. Have I had people reflect something back to me that I didn't ask for? And I'm like, yeah, no, I don't think so. And I've even, like, checked myself, like, "Hey, do you see this in my field? Because I value this, and, like, is this something I'm missing?" But the thing is I didn't say an immediate no. Do you know what I'm feeling like? It's like, it's not an immediate no, it's going into, okay, because people do have distortion in their field. People do
Totally.
have things can sometimes not see. So it's important to have some checks and balances just like
Yeah.
we do in everything, right?
Yeah.
So it's like you can have a coach, and if that doesn't resonate with you, then maybe hire someone else that's going to say, "Hey, do you feel like this is my problem?" Or a friend, or, I'm sure like you're like me. I have lots of spiritual psychics, friends, things that you can communicate with and ask if this is something that I'm moving through.
Mhm.
But really, if you're hiring a coach that you believe is going to take you along the journey, then if you're questioning that coach, they're probably not someone you're ready to deal with yet. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like if you're pushing back against somebody, that's probably not someone you're not ready for that level of work yet, is one of
yeah.
my opinion.
No, I agree. I've seen it in circle a lot as well. I totally agree. I think that having the tools to be self-reflective is always good. Like whatever feedback I get, I'm going to sit with it for at least a second and see like does this make me think of anything within myself? Do I feel any truth to this within myself? And if I don't, then that's not my truth. And but I'm also always going to take like I had a very blunt coach. She's incredible. And it wasn't everyone's, that kind of coaching isn't for everyone. But I really needed that. I really resonated with that and went on to work with her for 5 years because
Wow.
yeah, she's amazing. Amazing. I studied her methodology. This is now my life work is the work that she created because I believe in it, because I leaned in and I found a coach that I really resonated with, that I felt safe with. And I was willing to have my shit called out. I was willing to have that mirror freaking right in my face because I needed it. I was so done with the way that I had been living my life. I was miserable. And I knew that even if this short amount of time is really difficult for me to look at these things within myself, the level of misery that I was living in before, and anything is worth getting out of that. This small patch of, and when I say small patch, sometimes it was weeks of like really on my knees, dark night of the soul moments of like, why is this happening? What is going on? And that is also real and true. So it's not always going to be like that 30-second shift, like where you're at now, of course, because you have the tools and you're working with the quantum field, but
Everybody.
yeah, yeah. And it's a journey. And that's where when I work with people, I tell them repeatedly, like, this is a practice. This is a practice. I like to share my own personal stories with them. And I think that that's kind of different than normal therapy. Like sometimes to
I
the
do too.
muggles,
Well,
I,
I love hearing story. That's my favorite
yeah.
thing.
Oh, it's the best. It's the best. And it's a lost art form in our communities. But like when I'm telling the muggles what I do for work, I describe it.
The muggles, I love
Yeah.
that.
When I'm
Uh,
describing my work, I kind of describe it as energy therapy, like soul therapy, because it goes beneath the emotion. We're working with the energy of the emotion.
right,
Um,
right. Because you can't work with the logic.
yeah,
You can't, and that's the thing is
it'll
like when
fight
someone says,
you.
there's no validation, there's no this, there's no that. It's like every time I've ever made huge leaps, it never makes sense. I'm gonna sneeze.
Yeah,
Sorry, hold on. I'm gonna sneeze.
oh, you're good.
I didn't even sneeze, but I feel like everything has to like you go back to the like straightforward coach. I'm a straightforward coach.
Hmm.
I'd say it how it is.
Yeah.
I'm a Scorpio stellium. Like I say the shit, I see it, I can't unsee it. I can go into the depths of the darkness. I teach dark feminine. I can go into the void. I've created in the void. The void and I, we're tight.
Mm,
So I'm not afraid of the darkness.
yeah.
And I think that a lot of people are afraid to go into the depths. When you talked about, I want to just bring this back a little bit, but like you talked about, you don't go backwards. You don't go backwards, but you descend into integrations. Like
Totally.
you level up into the energy fields and your awareness. And then you almost have to go down into the physical aspects of yourself to integrate. It's like those choices, the physical feeling of
Hmm.
moving through the energy. And that's what I teach in my dark feminine is like, you can have all these activations, but until you make the conscious choice to change yourself, it's going to stay the same. You can light language your way through a lot of things, but you can't transmute choice. You
Mm,
have to make a
mm,
conscious different choice. And so I love how you brought that up because I don't believe in going backwards either. I
hmm.
don't think anyone ever, you can't unsee what you see.
Yeah.
It's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's like talk to someone who has been abused. And once they realize that they're being abused, they can't unsee it because it's
Yeah.
in their face every single day. And that's an extreme like
It's a
reason,
good
but
way to
that's
say
like
it.
but it is exactly how it is. And like as someone who has coached women who have been in like narcissism and all these
Mm,
things, it's being able to you have to get really real sometimes with those people because they've been manipulated and they've had gaslighting. They've been told you're not feeling this, you're not doing this, not doing that. But the truth of it is when you're straightforward with somebody, there's nowhere going this way.
hmm.
And I'm with you. Like, I'm all about soul signal. I'm all about connecting back into the soul, your connection, your divine blueprint, who you are,
Hmm.
teaching you the tools to do your own damn work. Like,
Yep.
do I channel? Yes. Can I channel what's going on in your field? Yes. And I
Hmm.
always ask specific questions like this, and they go down through the levels. Okay, now ask this. Now ask this. Now ask this. And there comes a level, if it is such a strong belief system, you can't get there. You literally, I haven't ever seen, there's a certain level of some people that once they get into that root aspect, if unless you've done a shit ton of work, you can't get into that root aspect. And that's what, like your coach, she called you out on your shit because she saw the roots. She saw the weeds in your garden
Hmm.
while you're still looking at roses. You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? And she was like, there's your weed. I see it. And you're like, fuck, yep, she's right. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
And the only reason I was able to receive that is because I had done nervous system work. That is the
Mhm.
only reason, because otherwise that information, that level of reflection, and that's why again with my clients, it is foundational. Always we're going to work on the
Yep.
nervous system. We will
Mhm.
get you to feel safe in your body so that whatever someone reflects back to you, whatever validation or invalidation you receive outside of yourself from people in your life, friends, family, whoever, it doesn't sway your
Yep.
how you feel about
Yep.
yourself. It doesn't sway your ability to be like, I am safe in this moment. Their words are not real daggers, and I'm safe in this moment. And if I feel unsafe, because your environment does play a fact. right? Like,
It does.
if you're in the middle of a war zone, you're not gonna be like, "I'm regulating my nervous system," like, whatever you need to be doing, you know what I mean? You're gonna
I'm
be
gonna
trying to
chat my
get
way through this.
yeah, you're gonna be trying to get food and water. When I was in
Yep,
Asheville
survival.
yeah, when I was in Asheville and a massive hurricane had decimated my town and there were landslides and flooding and people dying, I was doing my normal routine because I was like, "Okay, how am I gonna flush my toilet? How much water do I have left? How much food do I have left? Is there any neighbors around me that have a generator that I could, like, charge my phone so I can even try to call my family?" That's those are needs. So when your main physical needs are taken care of, food, shelter, water, that's when we start to work on the spiritual aspect of it. But you do have to have, and that's something that people bring up. They're like, well, what if you're in a war zone? Obviously, you're not going to be trying to fly into the ethers. You're going to be, what do I need to do to stay alive? So it's a very
Yeah,
different,
survival.
yeah,
Yep.
it's very different.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is too is I think there's a lot of women that are in functional freeze.
Totally.
Would you say that?
Oh, yeah.
Functional freeze is like, I'm not in freeze when I say I'm like, you're in freeze. And they're going, but I do this and this and this and this and this. And I go, yeah, it's called functional freeze. Like you're in literally functional freeze. And so I love that you brought that up, that the nervous system is the first thing you should work through because I
Hmm.
think that was probably my last thing I worked through,
Really?
actually. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. But I
Mm.
also like super, I didn't have to activate gifts, first of all. There was
Hmm.
no activating my gifts. I already had them.
Yeah.
Like I was a medium as a child. I
Mm.
could channel things, I could see things. So there was no like activating, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It was like most of my stuff was learning how to manage my gifts,
Hmm.
actually. It was my
I hear
experience
you.
in my awakening. It was like was never I never went to a class was like, I want to activate my light lane. It was like, holy shit, I'm gone fucking nuts. I'm hearing things that I don't even know what's happening right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, it's like it wasn't ever like, "Hey, I'm gonna go figure out how to remove an entity." It was like I was knees deep in a freaking session, and all of a sudden I see an entity. I'm like, "Oh fuck, what do I do with you?" You
Mm.
know, it's like that's kind of how my awakening has been. Is like burned by the fire, right? Like
I hear you.
trailblazer, just moving through the depths of it,
Mhm.
and because it was like doing a hypno session. All of a sudden, I'm like, "Oh fuck, they have an entity attached to this part of their body, and like, where's that tied into, and where is this coming from?" Is like being able to cognitively see, and that's
Mhm.
when my work actually shifted out of hypnosis because I was like,
Mm.
this is more than just the mind. This is more than
Absolutely.
just moving through mind aspects. All hypnotherapy is 97% more effective than talk therapy because
Mm.
you move through beliefs and traumas really quickly. You still have to work on your nervous system because my body,
Absolutely.
even though my brain was cognitively aware, I couldn't change the behavior because my body never felt safe and in
Yeah.
my own skin.
Yeah. Yeah, I really resonate with that in the way that my experience also was like, and now you will awaken your spirit because here's this deep, dark entity that you're going to be faced off with. And I didn't know what the hell was going on. And it at all. And it was through a clearing that I was like, what just happened to me? And that's when I started to talk to a priest because I was like, that was some funky shit. That's not normal. And I felt very misunderstood. I felt very unheard. I went
Oh,
back
I
t yeah.
did.
Oh, yeah. I went back to traditional therapy and I was like, "They're gonna put me on meds. They're gonna think I'm crazy." I know I'm not crazy. I know that the experience I had was something bigger than me. How can I understand it? And that's why I call myself all these things, our names, right? Like our titles, meditation coach, whatever. First and foremost, I'm a devotee of love because I experienced the profound power of spiritual love that has no end, no beginning. It simply is there. It is the most powerful force that we can awaken to. And my
Yeah.
experience of literally opening my heart in a way that cleared that out of my field, that became my guiding force throughout all of this. It's like love is the most powerful thing. Love is the answer. Love is the reason. How do I connect deeper into capital L love? How can I be of service from this place? How can I get back to that if I'm feeling a little bit estranged from it? And it really blasted open my gifts. It blasted open my heart. And it was from there that I went down the path of deep inner work, deep inner healing, and then eventually was like, there is nothing I can see myself doing other than this work for other people.
Yeah, it sounds beautiful. Sounds beautiful. And I love that you brought up the fact that you opened up your heart. And I
Mm,
call that energy essentially
absolutely.
is like divinity of all things and all creation and all things, Mother, Father, God. And moving in that into the divinity of allness. It's always interesting to listen to people because they think people like you and I don't believe in God. It's always very fascinating to me. In fact, always, always like people find out what "Oh, well, you really should use your gifts for God." I'm like, "How do you know that I don't?" You're assuming because
Yeah.
I as a psychic, seer, oracle, whatever you wanna call it, it's like they used us for years,
Mm, mhm,
right? For servitude and being able to see things through like, Jesus was a psychic. Sorry, guys, not sorry, you
mm.
know? Like, he was a psychic. Mary Magdalene, psychic.
Yes,
Like,
ma'am.
they were gifted people. And, we move through all of these things and the distortion, and we're bringing in truth, and it's like, fool yourself into think that a psychic now, are there negative people? Are there witch doctors? Are there
Absolutely.
negative entity, money-ridden, dark, bad people? Yes, but there's bad people in all things.
Mhm,
There's bad people in churches, we know
mhm.
this because it's exposed. It's like, don't assume that all people in different cultures, religions, spiritual aspects are all negative. Just because something bad happened to you doesn't mean that it's a one size fits all.
Yeah,
Some of us are actually here wanting to spread truth and
yeah.
divine love and spread God's message and really bring in those divine essences of coming back to yourself.
Absolutely. And that's why embodiment is so important because we can say all these things. Like, I went through such a deep period of like trying to scream from the rooftops the value of my work and the value of this work in general, whether or not people worked with me or not. I wanted to scream from the rooftops, like, if you only knew how beautiful life is, if you only knew how sacred this all is. And I was exhausted. It burnt me out and no one was listening. And so I said, what do I need to do differently? I'm just going to be it. I'm going to be it to the best of my ability. I am going to live my truth as much as I fucking can and let that be not an example, but like I pray it inspires somebody to ask me a question of like, what do you do? Like what is this and that? And I'm not perfect, right? Like I am a eternal student and I want to be. I want to continue to learn. I don't know everything. I know a lot and I know I can help people and be of service. But things changed when I stopped feeling like I needed to explain myself and I started to be my worth. I started to be my work. I started to embody love and the truth of what you're saying of like, there is a remembrance that's happening right now. And if we're constantly trying to scream and use our words, it's not going to land because there is so much screaming happening right now. There is so much. So, how can we
Yep.
be those light keepers? How can we be that lighthouse for others? And like, you're doing that in your work. I'm doing it in my work. We do it when we go to the grocery store and we have a heartfelt conversation with the cashier. Like, this is how we change the world. Point blank. That's
Yeah.
how you change the world.
Kindness and love and being kind to people and,
Yeah.
that's how you share you appreciation, and I said something to somebody one day, I was like, "I really appreciate that," and she looked at me and she's like, "Well, thanks."
Yeah.
And, like, it's like something so
You're welcome.
simple. Yeah, you're welcome. Listening, feels disconnected from themselves right now. What is one piece of advice that you would give them that would create real change instead of just more information?
I love that question. If you are feeling disconnected from yourself, I would invite you to put your phone down, to go outside, and no matter how woo this sounds, give it a try. Sit down outside in the sun and let yourself really feel and experience nature. Let yourself feel the sun on your skin. Let yourself feel the ground underneath of you because you are connected to something so profound. You have a place in this life, otherwise, you wouldn't be here. And when you can reconnect to really the first mother, what we all come from, that's when you start to remember yourself. When you remember that you have a place in this life that is so much greater than you. When you can reconnect to life itself, that's when you're going to reconnect to yourself. So, as much space as you can give yourself to really listen and bear witness to nature and the world around you, you're going to start to find your place in it. You're going to start to feel you as a piece of the puzzle in this life. Otherwise, again, you wouldn't be here. So give yourself the space to get quiet and curious. Be curious.
Beautiful. That's such a great message. Yeah. Do you have anything you'd like to share that's coming up or a unique offer that you wanna share with the audience?
Yeah, so I recently reopened my private coaching. So I have 4 more slots available for some private coaching. I recently opened up my discovery calls. So I offer 30-minute free discovery calls if people are interested in learning about this methodology that I've started to tap into. If you feel a pull to work with me, I would invite you to book that call and we can talk about what that might look like. I'm also going to be launching a membership this year, a low ticket membership, because community is a prayer that has been put in my bones, it feels like at this point. So, right now, working to create in person community, but also online for women that want to continue to be that light keeper and want sisterhood. And connection. So, yeah, and I'll send you that link so maybe we could put that in the show
Yeah.
notes or
Yeah.
yeah,
There. Yeah. In the
beautiful.
description. Yep. If something stirred in your soul today, don't keep it to yourself. Share it, speak it, and let it ripple. Hit that subscribe button and stay close. The revolution isn't coming, it's already moving through you. Until next time, stay grounded in your truth and rise as the embodied rebels and the divine rebels that you are. Wow, I really screwed that up. Hold on. Until next time, stay grounded in your truth and rise in your divine rebels that you are. There we go.
Yay.